So, when did counseling stop being about problem solving? Well, not anymore. Introducing solution-focused counseling with the unlicensed counselor. And now, here's your host, Steve Moak.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of The Unlicensed Counselor. My name is Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor, and as always, so grateful to be here on another beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona day. If you hear a little different tone in my voice today, it's because that's something that's been weighing on my mind a little bit, and it's, look, I like to bring topics to you, interesting. I try and be relevant, have good points and insight, but sometimes a topic like today is a little more somber. You can't quite have as much fun. Not that this whole show is around having fun, but I want to talk a little bit about loss and, how we got here. Because, again, I always say, these are typically things that are going on in my life in terms of how we find kind of the show topic that I want to bring to your eyes and ears every week. For me, I've got a dog, a little Shih Tzu named Biscuit. Love that guy. He's been through 2 marriages and a lot of other stuff. I've always said I want to write a book from the eyes of Biscuit. He's been my buddy for, 14 years now. And I think it's getting to that time, right? I think it's getting to that time where they say crossing the Rainbow Bridge and things like that. And, I know this isn't a fun way to start a top of the show out, but it got me thinking about loss. And again, I haven't lost my little buddy yet, but it's certainly, I made the call to the vet of, okay, what are the next steps? How do we do this? What's what does it all look like? And all that kind of not so fun stuff. But so, again, I'm not in the grieving stage right now, but I've got loss on my mind, right? And so I'm like, okay, what can I do to kind of mentally prepare for what I know is coming up, right? And we all know when we buy a pet, we all know that death is a part of life. And whether that's a pet, whether that's an unexpected loss of a loved one, or it could be the ending of a relationship, that feeling of loss is deep, it hurts, it's sad, and it takes a lot of time. So, I want to dig into, kind of why loss hurts so much. I want to dig into how to recover from loss. And then the last thing, because I was thinking about this as I was thinking about my dog, what about regret? What about having some regrets after loss, right? Maybe the things you'd wish you said and how to deal with some regrets maybe after loss as well, too. So, look, I know that's a heavy way to kind of start out a show, but it is what it is. It's one of those things that we need to talk about. I feel like as Americans, as culture, whatever it is, like, we don't really like to talk about death all that much. And I'm going to spend less time on death, but a little bit more on loss. And again, loss can be a relationship as well, too. I mean, potentially it could be a job, something you had a deep emotional connection and bond to that is now no longer there, right? So I want to dig into why it hurts so much, because I'm already feeling, and I'm trying not to, but I'm already feeling like I have that loss. And again, I haven't even, lost my little buddy yet. So stay tuned. We're going to dig into that in a few minutes. But before we do that, hey, I want to transition quickly into our sponsors. And as always, say thank you to them. First off is our newest sponsor, Buzzbin Media. Go to buzzbinmedia.com. That's BUZ1Z media.com. It is a great service where they pay you to put advertisements, little decals on the side of your trash cans. So they actually Venmo you money directly to your account. They're rolling out. They're a new business, so they're not in every city yet. But go to the website, sign up for the new resident form. They send you out decals. You take a picture of them. Then they start sending money directly to your Venmo account every single month. It's really that easy. It's a pretty cool little business. So go and sign up at buzzbinmedia.com. Big thanks to them for being a sponsor of our show. Next up, I always like to talk about the youth drug abuse prevention work that I do. Go to the website, thestopstartshere.org. This is really important stuff that we do. This is around youth drug abuse prevention. We've got some speaking tours that we're actually getting ready to do. The primary focus of what we do is youth drug abuse prevention via social media. But me and the other co-founders are available to go speak. And I think we're actually heading out to Michigan to go speak at a city that's been kind of ravaged by fentanyl and methamphetamine and some things like that. So it's terrible stuff. I know it kind of bugs me a little bit in this political season. You hear a lot more about fentanyl and overdose and deaths and things like that, and they tie it to the border. And it's like, I wish this stuff didn't have to be so politicized. It's been a problem when it wasn't an election year. It's still a problem now. If you're a parent, go to our website at thestopstartshere.org. Download the Parents Prevention Playbook. You're going to find some take-home tips on what to do to help your son or daughter today so that they never start. Last but not least, I always like to plug the Unlicensed Counselor of the show. Hey, I've seen the numbers, the podcast, the downloads. It's cool. I mean, it's doing really well. I think we're at episode, 83. I mean, there's a lot of shows now that we've done. The audience is growing. Thank you for continuing to share this with your friends and family and kind of saying, hey, this guy's got some interesting points of view. It's a 30-minute show. It's easy to watch, easy to listen to, and we always got some fun, interesting stuff. So give us a follow on the YouTube, on all the other social media platforms, and download us wherever you find finer podcasts as well, too. Okay. I've actually had this show topic on my mind for a while, but I'm like, man, it's just it's a heavy topic. It's hard, it's emotional, it's painful. But as I've kind of come into this stage where I'm at with my pet, and look, I've lost loved ones. Specifically, I lost a grandpa who I was very close to, so I can relate to losing a loved one as well, too. That was probably 10, 15 years or so ago now. I was too young when my other grandfather passed to really appreciate and understand it. So, but today what kind of prompted me was what I know is coming with my dog. And, dogs and people, I mean, I don't know if it's just the U.S. or what, but we have a very strong connection to our animals. And again, I'm just going to speak to dogs. I've never owned a cat. If you got other birds, animals, fish, whatever it is, I understand it. It's the feelings that we talk about. And it's really interesting because I see so many times we talk about overdose deaths and things like that and these huge numbers of things that are going on, and it kind of just floats by our consciousness. And then you see an ad about a dog that's abused or somebody like that, and it's like nationwide uproar. So it's really interesting, the relationship we have with our pets, and I think very valuable. But it really now feels like I'm losing a loved one or about to lose a loved one. So I want to get into why this loss hurts so much. And again, this can be a loss of a loved one, could be accidental or, just happen unexpectedly, and it could be the loss of a relationship. Whatever you feel like or have seen that's going on in your life or maybe a friend's life, think about that as you're kind of listening to me talk a little bit about loss today. And I'll try not to get choked up as well, too, because it's been times. And I'm not much of a crier, Robin, but I tell you, I've been fighting this one back, so I can only imagine when it's really going to happen. I might have to call in sick for the show or something like that. But all right, reason number one why loss hurts so much is the emotional bonds and attachments that we have to the people, to the relationship, to the pets. The deeper the emotional connection, the more painful the loss. So if you have a lifelong partner or a pet, I mean, it's like, and they're gone all of a sudden, it's like losing a part of your identity. It's losing a part of you, that sense of self that is no longer there. In these relationships, they can provide a sense of belonging and comfort, so that absence creates really a void in your life. And all of a sudden, it's just a void. And many times, it comes quickly. I mean, I've kind of known this was coming, but now, as I'm speaking about my dog, it's kind of becoming apparent that, okay, is he in pain? Is he not in pain? He sleeps 20 plus hours a day. I have to carry him inside and out. And I can kind of see that one coming, and it's still really painful, let alone something that, someone gets in a car accident or something like that. The next thing of why it can hurt so much is kind of that shock and disbelief of that sudden loss, an accident, an unexpected breakup. That can cause that emotional shock, and you can just find yourself, how can this person, how can Biscuit be gone, or waking up expecting everything to return to normal, and it's never going to happen. And so it's just this like mind, you know what I want to say, but I'm not going to say, that it just screws with you. And then you just kind of chew on it, and it's constantly running through your head. And I know that's been the case with me. What am I going to do? Am I doing the right thing? Am I waiting too long? If I take him in, what if he could live for another year? All these types of things that are just running through your head. The other thing of why this hurts so much is, we have these routines, right? And now this routine has been disrupted. The pattern is broken. Whether it's a pet, a partner, they shape our daily lives. And you'll feel that absence every single time you come home, right? And your house is a little quieter. You've got the pictures up. I've got the dog bed and the bowls over there. And then there's the toy that you maybe slid under the thing that you find a little bit later on. And that stuff, it just kind of gets at you. And again, I'm just sitting here going, I can't imagine how quiet my house is going to be. You know, the end of these relationships, whether it's a person or animal, and just the routine, and now it's gone. And that heightened sense of like emptiness that it's just not there anymore. And that's really going to bug me. And I know it's really going to eat at me for a long time as well too. Also say that you lose that kind of identity and that purpose in a loss. So if you lose, let's say, your husband or wife, you know, maybe your purpose was a lot attached to them as well too. You know, maybe you built so much of your life together and around that relationship or caregiving, and now this person's gone. You know, where is your purpose now found? And how do you feel like you could just be out floating into the world? That's tough. Post-divorce, you know, I definitely felt like I was lost, you know, and just kind of out there floating in the world. Then you get to this idea of kind of regret and unfinished business, you know. So why didn't I do things differently, right? I wish I'd spent more time with them. Why didn't I tell them how I feel, right? So those things that maybe we say that now that person's gone, and that just eats at you, that loss, and you'll never have the opportunity to kind of say that or share what you wanted to say again. And then there's also the idea of you have these future dreams that are now shattered as well, too. This loss takes away all your future plans, whether the expectation was a shared life together or adventures, or where you're going to take your next pet, or where you're going to take your pet on like the next fun thing that we're going to do. The death of a loved one really feels like a stolen future. Like that time is gone and you're never going to have that back. And then just the physical and mental impact of losing someone. So, you know, grief. We hear that word grief a lot. It's not just emotional. It physically affects you as well, too. People often experience fatigue, lack of sleep, loss of appetite, and even physical pain in response to kind of this emotional distress as well, too. So there is like a physical gnawing at you. And I have just the tip of that right now when I just start to think of, you know, this person's been with me, you know, longer than my daughter, longer than 2 wives. I mean, it's seen me through, an addiction, and then to treatment, and then back, and then, you know, it's seen me all over the place, and I can feel how it's just going to kind of eat at me. And then that loss is really going to trigger some loneliness as well too. Let's just call it what it is, right? Losing someone's going to create that sense of isolation for you as well, you know. And I know friends and family say that they understand and I'm sorry for your loss, but it's tough for anybody to really understand the depth of the grief, right, that you're really feeling. And I appreciate thoughts and prayers and all that stuff, and I know people's intentions are positive and people bring over food, and I do love that tradition that we kind of have, at least in the United States, of around that type of stuff. But, you know, it's hard to really understand the depth of some of this, the pain that we're going to feel. So how can we recover from this, right? How can we recover? We're all going to experience this in some way, shape, or form at different points in our lives, some of us more than others. But how do we recover from this loss, or at least attempt to recover, right? I mean, maybe you'll never fully recover, and I understand that. I mean, I don't even like saying this into the microphone, but thinking about losing a child or something like that. You know, and that's pain that I don't know if I could recover from. You know, I don't really want to think about it, but I understand that if people can't recover from that type of stuff, I understand it. So that's what I'm going to say, at least start to move on and recover from some of this loss. But I think the number one thing is you've got to acknowledge and feel the pain, right? And by the way, I'm like saying this to myself in this episode as well, too. I'm like coaching myself through this because I know what's going to be coming up. So avoiding the grief and the healing process is not healthy. Give yourself permission to feel that sadness, that anger. You're going to feel that regret, but try and feel that regret without the judgment that comes attached with that regret as well, too. And if you need to, maybe start to do some journaling, maybe start speaking openly about your feelings or with a trusted friend, and that can help start this process. And you may need to even preface this like, look, I'm not looking for advice or suggestions here. I just need to kind of express how I feel and let this kind of come out of me, right? I think that's a great way, healthy way to start to approach some of this as well. So make sure that we're acknowledging and feeling that pain. Don't try and run from it. Don't try and stuff it away or pretend it didn't happen or that it's not that important or it's not that significant or you're tough or I'm that kind of, tough guy kind of thing. I think in our world, we've gotten a little away from that, which is good from kind of the 1950s, 1960s, mom, dad, grandpa of kind of tough guy thing. Maybe we've gotten a little too far on the sensitivity side. But I do think it's okay to make sure that we acknowledge the pain that we're feeling as well, too, right? I also want to say that accept that the recovery part of this is going to take some time. It's going to take probably a significant amount of time, probably more than you think it's going to do. And that's okay, by the way, too, as long as you're kind of slowly moving yourself forward. Healing is not linear. Grief can come in waves. You may feel better some days and worse other days. It's normal to feel moments of happiness even while you're grieving, and that's okay, right? That's okay. So I even did a little research on kind of what is some time needed in terms of this healing process as well. These are just ballparks to kind of give you ideas. Don't hold me to any of this stuff. But let's say the loss of a loved one. That typically can be 6 months to several years to reach that sense of stability. Just to give you an idea, so you don't feel like you're on some kind of rush or you're ahead of time or behind in terms of kind of moving through this. The loss of a pet, 3 months to over a year, kind of depending on that level of attachment, right? I'm probably going to be on the longer side of that. Myself. The end of a relationship, 6 months to 2 years, depending on the length and intensity of that relationship. Just a couple examples. So I think a lot of times people get out of these breakups or divorces and things like that and be like, okay, I'm back, I'm ready, I'm bounced back, I want to go out and dating. No, you're not. You're not. Even if you are doing all these super healthy things that kind of you're going to counseling, you're talking about, exercising, taking care of yourself, blah, blah, blah. Again, I didn't even date for a year after post-divorce. I was just like, I know I'm not ready. And truthfully, even the dates that I went out on, even after the year mark, I was like, I still don't feel like I'm ready. I feel like I'm telling myself that I'm ready, but then you get into these situations and it's like, I don't want to get into something and not knowing that I don't feel like I'm already there, right? Or that I'm not the best, healthiest version of me. And I'm not looking for perfection, but I am looking for a healthy person that can be engaged actively in this relationship. And I was just like, I wasn't there, right? It took a long time, at least 18 months, probably for me. That's going to be different for everybody, but just give you an idea. I think another thing in order to recover from a loss too is you're going to have to create some new routines. Doing the same thing that you always did together with your dog, with your friend, your husband, your wife, whatever it is, you're going to have to break that up a little bit to help kind of navigate some of this. You're going to have to build some new habits. You're going to have to replace those routines centered around that relationship that's not there or that pet. You're going to have to do things a little bit differently. You're going to have to take those walks in probably a different place than you used to, right? Those are just some of the things that you're going to have to force yourself to do. Otherwise, you may find yourself just sitting stuck in that pain, and it lingers for maybe longer than it needs to, at least, right? Now, I would also encourage people to kind of lean on your social support. This is your time. And I've said this in many other shows, too. This is why it's crucial to have social supports in place already. Have friends, have clergy, have, family members, it's uncles, mentors, whatever it is. Have those people in place in your life so that when traumatic events and loss happens, you can lean on them. You don't want to try and be creating those on the fly while you're struggling. That's really challenging. Right? And that's on you as an individual to make sure that you have kind of social support networks available to you. So share your grief with others who understand. If you need to, join a support group. They're there for a reason. They've stood the test of time for a reason, probably because they help people, right? Talking with people who've experienced similar loss can reduce that sense of isolation and hopefully provide some coping advice for you as well, too. Hearing somebody who just lost a loved one in a car accident or cancer or whatever it is. Like, these are things that can help you get through this a little bit faster. It's not going to be a cure, right? It's not a magic thing where it's like, oh, all of a sudden I feel better, but it's going to help you get forward and get through this a little bit quicker as well, too. And here's one that actually I'm going to do with my situation. Find a way to honor the loss, right? It doesn't have to be grandiose or anything like that, but memorialize kind of my pet through a ritual, write them a poem, plant a tree, donate something in their name, create a photo album. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I was like, let's not hide from the fact and take every photo down and things like that. Let's lean into it. It's going to hurt. It's going to be sad. There will be tears. But let's lean into that and find a way to kind of create something positive and look fondly on the times that we did have together, right? I mean, it's 14 years. And again, he's not gone yet. But I know what's coming, and I'm kind of mentally preparing myself for this as well. You know, maybe I can write a letter to him or something. I've seen that used a lot in the treatment center world with people trying to kind of move on from their addiction and things like that. And then let's also look at dealing with regret by focusing on forgiveness. Right? So regret is natural, very natural, but holding on to it increases your level of suffering. So acknowledge any mistakes, any missed opportunities, and remind yourself that no relationship is perfect, right? Go easy on yourself. Find a little forgiveness throughout this process. Practicing a little self-compassion is going to help you. It's not going to change the past, right? Let's be very clear about that. But you can honor their memory by focusing on the good times that you had together and not just thinking about how sad it is that this person or this pet or this relationship is now gone. So think of those things as you're trying to kind of start. Give yourself, just like I said, what were those timelines? I mean, they're significant. I mean, significant timelines. Give yourself time to get through this kind of healing journey as well, too. You know, engage in a little self-care and personal growth as you're going through this as well. Loss often forces people to kind of re-examine their priorities. So do that. Use this time to focus on personal healing and things that bring meaning, like new hobbies or volunteering. Find something that gives you meaning through this process. And I think that's another great way of potentially honoring this person, this relationship, this pet, or whatever it is as well, too. So engage in some self-care and find a way to potentially find some growth through this process as well, too. And then as always, and I like to end these things, is find some professional help if you need to as well, too. Don't feel like you have to do it alone. If it is really getting at you and you've maybe tried some of these things and you're not finding the forward progress that you would like, I would highly encourage you to, seek some professional help. Some grief is so overwhelming. I get it. I mean, I get it to the point I can get it, right? I get it to the point I can get it. Therapists can provide some coping strategy and help you navigate some of this guilt and anger that's going to come up during this process as well, too. So, gosh, I'm just thinking about it myself. It's like, this is tough stuff, And I'm thinking about a pet, and it's like, it's sad. Many people out there are facing much more serious things than what I'm kind of going through at this point in time, right? So it's like, I'm talking a lot about my dog just because that's what's going on. I understand that the people in your life that are going through cancer treatments and things like that, and health conditions or unexpected loss where they were there this morning that are not there anymore. I mean, that stuff is much more significant and tragic. So just recognize that I understand that as well, too. But the last part of kind of the loss, and again, I always try and keep these shows around 30 minutes or so. So I just like to get to all the important stuff. There's much more to unpack on this topic, obviously, but I try and give you some take-home value on things that you can do today. As part of loss, a lot of times we'll feel regret, right? So there's what I didn't do, what I wish I could have done. You're looking back, your head ringing, you're stressed, you're frustrated. Why didn't I do this? So there's just a lot of regret. So how do we deal with regret after loss? Let's do this first. Let's reflect honestly, and let's reflect without harsh self-judgment as well, too. And that's going to take a little bit of time. And by the way, you might need a little bit of time from the actual immediate loss, days, weeks, months, whatever it is, to start to reflect back without that judgment as well, too. It's normal to feel the regret that's going to come, but avoid getting that stuck in that cycle of blame. If you regret not saying I love you enough, recognize that the person likely knew how much they meant to you through your actions, right? Just don't be so hard on yourself. Kind of look back on it through a different lens when you're kind of maybe out of that acute phase of kind of that, you just lost that loved one or that thing. Let's also try and learn from the experience. Let's learn from the experience and kind of dealing with the regret after a loss. So use regrets potentially as a lesson. If you feel you didn't spend enough time with a loved one, make an effort to strengthen your relationships with those around you moving forward, right? So let's not repeat the same mistake over again. Take an honest inventory of yourself and go, okay, I understand. Now let's do a little bit different. I've got all these other great, amazing people in my life. Let's maybe apply some of these things that I wish I had done to the people who are still here and with us, because you just can't change what had already happened in the past, right? I also think, I kind of touched on this before, but writing a letter of forgiveness. If you find yourself still kind of unresolved feelings lingering, you're kind of spinning, right? Your mind kind of caught in that circle, write a letter to the person or the pet expressing what you wish you had said. I'm not always the greatest at expressing right then and there what I say. I'm trying to get better at that. But if you miss that window or you wish you had done it, let's write a letter, right? This exercise can help release some of that emotional burden that we carry. And again, I see this happen in the treatment centers. Again, I worked in the treatment centers. They literally write letters about a specific topic or instance, or write it to drugs or to alcohol or to cocaine, whatever, and then we take it out to the fire and burn it, right? And there's just a sense of that letting it go, right? And I think it's a really simple yet effective way that you can kind of let go of some of those lingering burdens that are probably with us. And last but not least, in kind of dealing with the regret after losses, focus on what you did right? Focus on what you did right. When regrets surface, balance them with reminders of the positive things that you did. Celebrate the good moments and let them serve as reminders for the relationship's meaning, right? I'm sure there were great times in that time. Let's think about some of those instead of just all the things that you missed along the way too. Let's look back fondly. And again, I understand, acknowledge the pain, all those types of things. But over time, let's look back on these things and let's talk about what we did right. Recovering from loss is not easy. It's deeply personal, and it varies based on the nature of the relationship, and it kind of on your individual resilience as well too. So this isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of podcast on loss right now. But the goal isn't really to get over it, but it's how can you integrate back into your life in a way that allows you to move forward, find some peace, and find a little bit of purpose. You're still here. You've still got a life to live, and I'm sure that person, that pet, that thing would want you to kind of move forward and be able to live happy, joyous, and free, right? I think that's about all we need to hit on for today. This is heavy. I don't need to drag it out anymore. There is a ton of information on loss and grief and all those types of things. And I think it may be good to listen to this or do some research before you even walk into or experience some of these things versus kind of when something happens and now you're spinning and your mind's going a million different ways, just to at least have a little idea on maybe some things to do that can help you start to move forward after you've experienced some type of loss like this. So, interesting stuff. Hey, I appreciate the time today. I know that's a little heavier topic than we usually do, but it's a super important one. Hopefully you got a little bit of nuggets of information out of this. If you or someone you know has kind of just experienced loss or could find some value in this podcast, go ahead and share it with them. I really appreciate it. But my name is Steve Moak, and I am the Unlicensed Counselor. Till next time, thank you very much.